Hey guys, I know I said I was gonna avoid doing any Switch related news updates unless something major happened, but I feel like enough has happened recently with Suyu to warrant making a new video, just to kind of cover what's been going on. So, a few days ago, now I haven't seen any actual documents, so I don't know who. A lot of people are speculating it was Nintendo, but I don't think we know for sure at this point who actually submitted a DMCA, if there was a DMCA takedown notice. But what we do know for a fact is that the Discord channels for Suyu and I believe also for Sudachi were shut down by Discord. So their Discord servers were shut down. And the accounts were deleted for the people behind Suyu and Sudachi. I haven't really been following much more. I haven't heard much more than that on the Sudachi front, but there's been a lot going on at Suyu that's worth mentioning. So beyond losing their Discord, their immediate response to that was they were going to just switch to their own app, which I believe they were using something like Rocket Chat for, which it seems like an odd system switching to a. I don't know. It seems like something forum based would make more sense than a chat app, but okay. That's their prerogative. That's what they wanted to do. But at the same time, about a week ago, maybe a little longer, uh, I went to their website, the Suyu.dev website, and it displayed on it that there were like 50 developers. Which, if you watch my last video on Suyu, you'll remember seeing it was like 80 plus developers or contributors. And I had said, well, you just started, so let's see, let's brag about how many contributors we have after some time has passed. And I look and I see it's down to 50. And if you go there today, they don't even display that count. And the reason for that is it would appear that most of the developers and contributors have left the Suyu project. And last night I was looking on Reddit and came across this. I've got the same story pulled up in a couple of different subreddits. But here we go. Suyu project freeze and court order. And this is from Crimson Hawk, who is the founder of the Suyu emulator project. But here's what he says. Dear everyone, this is the founder and owner of the Suyu emulator project speaking. After careful consideration, I have decided to put the development of this project in freeze. Reasons are as follows. Number one, we simply do not have the capabilities to maintain the code anymore, as most of the devs have left this project, and understandably so. Number two, legal risks. Our Discord was forced to shut down due to a court order, not just a simple DMCA. This changes the situation a lot, and I am no longer willing to bear the risk of getting sued, despite the name of this project. How does this affect you? The frequency of the updates of the software will slow down, but we will continue to provide support for it. With that being said, I understand that a lot of you will hate me for this decision, and many people are going to cheer for the death of the once most popular yuzu fork. Whatever it is, may the emulation community survive. Let's pick this apart a little bit. Obviously, I'm not on the inside. I don't know the details, but I feel like I can speculate with the best of them. For number one, we simply do not have the capabilities to maintain the code anymore. Yeah, it seems like I was probably right. It seems like this project, this fork was started with the hopes of without a real plan and just sort of hoping on a wing and a prayer that you attract developers that are skilled enough to keep things going. And that clearly hasn't happened. And I think the people who did show up realized what a mess this project is and have left. So, yeah, that makes sense that you don't have the capabilities to do this anymore. Two, legal risks. Um, it's kind of odd to me because this isn't the first problem the Suyu project has run into regarding legality. Um, so it's weird that this one, or maybe it's just the fact that more than one thing has happened and they're just really terrified of being sued. Um, my speculation on this is that this really has nothing to do with the legal risks. Even though the legal risks are there and they're always going to be there for something like this, I think the problem is more number one, the developers leaving. I think right now with number two, this guy is looking for an excuse because they just currently do not have the skills necessary to keep the project going. And I think it sounds better from their perspective to say, "Oh, it's because of the legal risks." But I think legal risks aside, I don't think this person could keep this project going right now. So they were just sort of looking for an excuse. I don't have it pulled up, but there's another Reddit thread from maybe a week or two ago. Um, well, I guess maybe like a few days ago, really. It was about the time the Discord got shut down. Because, once again, the fearless leader of the project, of Suyu, made a post that said something like, here's what we're doing. And he was like, I've contacted the whatever division and told them to do this. And then I contacted this division and I contacted the legal team and said, call me ASAP. And it sounds honestly like a child trying to do their best at pretending to be like a big professional business guy. Um, like a project this new, this size, like I mean, honestly, what's your legal team? Is that like your personal attorney? Is it even an attorney? Is it just some? Is it your buddy who just graduated law school? Like, I mean, what is that? Like, to and the to say you have all these divisions. Usually, you encompass like a large corporation has divisions, and it could be tens or hundreds of people working in a particular division. And I just feel like that's not the case here. I feel like when you say you contacted the whatever division, like you just contacted your buddy, or maybe you just thought it because you're probably most of these people. Like, is the individual Crimson Hawk like making up most of these divisions? Uh, but yeah, it was just it seemed like this weird situation where they were just trying to make themselves sound like more important than they are. But moving on. The frequency of the updates of the software will slow down. Development of the project in freeze. Frequency updates will slow down, but will continue. Well, but we will continue to provide support for it. Yeah, I'd say it would slow down. In fact, if the updates of the software continue at all, then you haven't put the project in freeze. So you say it's gonna slow down. You don't say it's gonna stop, but up here you say the project is in freeze. So there's already a problem here because a project in freeze means no development is taking place. There are no code changes allowed during a freeze. So either you've misspoken here or you've misspoken down here when you said slow down. Because in a freeze, the frequency of the updates of the software will stop. But we will continue to provide support for it. Okay, great, I guess. Um, I don't see how that really solves number two legal risks because if you are really concerned about getting sued, you would take down the site, you would take down all the code. Just not doing any more development on it. If there's something there that a company like Nintendo thinks they can sue over, and you just leave it there, you can always be sued over it. So putting the project in freeze, but still leaving it up and supporting it, that doesn't really exempt you from legal risks. So that it's just weird. And then this part here, many of you are going to cheer for the death of the once most popular yuzu fork. Come on, dude. Really? This Suyu project is what at best like a month old. And if we go to the website, let's go to Get Suyu. We've got two versions marked as stable. The first of which, full rebrand, ICNS icon generation, error handling, which, okay, I guess you made some changes to the error handling. QLaunch initial integration, buggy, requires further testing, requires version 17 firmware or newer. Which I could be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, even Yuzu had, the QLaunch initial code there. They just didn't have it enabled because it was buggy. So this could have just been something as simple as basically flipping a switch. Require all keys to be user provided along with firmware. That doesn't really seem like a hugely drastic change. There's just not a lot here. This mostly comes down to they forked it, which again is not an accomplishment. Anyone who sits down and tries can fork a project. It's really not hard. But most of these things are, I think there's very few changes actually to Yuzu in this. It's just a lot of like branding things and um, no major change, no real major changes. Up here, the other one, and let's talk about these version numbers. If you have a project, you can definitely rev your versions however you want, but there are certain standards that are usually upheld or people try to uphold. Your stable, marking your release stable that is version 0.0.2 or 0.0.3 is really unusual, and you would never be able to identify this by version number alone as being a stable version. And that's the beauty of having a standard, or at least some sort of thing that everybody does with version numbers, is you can look at that number and tell, like, is this a major update, a minor update? Um, is it a beta release? Version number can tell you a lot if done properly, and I just think these guys don't really understand how to properly version their code or their releases, I should say. And this one, we've got a preliminary fix for firmware 18. I feel like this should be called a preliminary implementation for firmware 18 because a fix would imply that version 18 is working, and then you have down here that it may work, but it's not guaranteed. Yeah, I feel like in the release notes you should maybe mention situations in which it will work, or the fact that you don't makes me think it probably doesn't work at all. I haven't tried it myself, or sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you don't know why. But it sounds like this version can this entry here and the notes here can sort of be stricken from the record because I don't really think you can say that when you down here say that not guaranteed to work. Preliminary fix for Princess Peach Showtime. I have not looked at the code for Suyu, and I'm probably not going to. But I have heard rumors that they simply copied a fix that Sudachi implemented. And if that's the case, then they didn't really do any actual work here. But yeah, it seems like they've really done very little to truly improve on that last build of Yuzu. I, I would still recommend using Yuzu for the games that last version will play. And it'll play a lot of them and it'll do it pretty decently. And I'm gonna recommend ryujinx for anything going forward that yuzu will not play until we get like a proper successor to the yuzu project. And it's just looking more and more like that is not going to be Suyu at all. It just seems like a very unorganized mess of a project with leadership that doesn't truly know what they're doing. Like they had, I think, good intentions in the beginning to, fork and continue working on this, but they didn't have, or they appear to have not had a solid enough plan on how they're going to achieve that. And with no plan or a flimsy plan at best, things do eventually start to crack and fall apart. And I think that's what we're seeing here now with all of their developers leaving. We look at some of the comments. Um, it's not like they actually made any significant changes beyond code cleanup and documentation fixes. Suyu is useless because the lead self-appointed dev has zero dev experience. It's a repost of the last fork with nobody having any clue on how to actually develop an emulator. Yeah, just the fact they called themselves the once most popular like yuzu fork is just ridiculous because you've added almost nothing of value to the emulator. You just forked it and said, "Hey, look at me" a bunch of times and built up expectations that you were unable to follow up or follow through with. Um, in a way, I find this is just kind of funny. I'm hoping that there are maybe other forks out there. Um, in the grand scheme of things, Yuzu just went away. So, and because it's so easy to fork things, I'm hoping that there's a project out there or multiple projects out there that are actually doing real work but staying fairly quiet about it for right now. Um, because I don't think everyone is going to be like this group that just wanted 15 minutes of fame. I think we're probably not going to hear about uh, any other Switch forks, and they're just going to maybe in a year or so just come out of the blue and be like, here's a great project. Look at all the things we've done, and we're going to be wowed by it. I think that's going to happen. But even if that doesn't happen, right now, ryujinx is still a thing, and that's kind of my recommendation going forward. Like I said before, is going to be ryujinx for any games that you can't play with the yuzu emulator, or if you just prefer to use ryujinx, use that for everything. For me, I'm going to use yuzu for anything it will play, and then I will, and I'm already using ryujinx for. I'm using ryujinx Avalonia on Batocera because I used to favor the ryujinx continuous over the Avalonia because I didn't really care about the GUI because I'm using it in Batocera, but they merged the ryujinx and the Avalonia together. So if you've been using the Switch updater, you've probably noticed that the ryujinx continuous version never updates. That's because the update is the ryujinx Avalonia package. So in Batocera, you'll want to use ryujinx Avalonia going forward to make sure you have the latest version of ryujinx. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted to go over the Suyu the Suyu news that's out there recently. But it looks like things are not looking good for the project, and that it is, according to the owner maintainer of the project, it's going into a development freeze. So I wouldn't have any major expectations for it going forward unless they can like pull some really skilled developers out of the hat. I think this is the first step in just the death of the entire project, especially with the leadership they currently have being apparently very unable to lead in a good and proper way. Certainly in a way that is able to keep developers and contributors happy enough to remain with the project.